What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In this video we are going to go over the new strategies for elephant money. We're going to talk about the get back to peg strategy. We're going to talk about the peg support strategy. We're going to go over some of these new governance contracts. We're going to talk about what the Stampede bond float is and what the buyback is. I do want to mention before we jump into this video that contrary to what some of you might believe, I don't have any back channels for information. So everything that you're going to see in this movie or everything that you're going to see in this video is derived straight from information that was given to all of us through the Medium articles and what we see here on the blockchain. So I've got a great video for you guys. If you want to, this is Into Crypto, a channel I started to share my journey into decentralized finance. Here you will get to see weekly videos of an average Joe investor, myself, start with a minimal amount of capital and attempt to make it big in the crypto space. I will show you everything that happens in my portfolio with full transparency, no matter how bad it may get. I should mention I am not a financial advisor and all my content is intended for entertainment and education only. You should always do your own research before making any investments. If you would like to join the Into Crypto community or you just want to learn more about the crypto space, please check out the links below. And while you're down there, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Without further ado, let's get into crypto. So the first thing I want to look at is the Trunk BUSD liquidity pool. You'll notice here that these numbers are converging. The last video I did, you can go back and check to verify this, but I can tell you that the BUSD side was at about 6 million Trunk and the Trunk side was about 7.35 million, I believe. And I said that once these numbers converge, we will get back to peg. So as you can see, there is only about a $400,000 difference, which means we only need 200,000 more BUSD put into this liquidity pool to be back to peg. So if I was right, the fact that these numbers are closer together does mean that we are closer to peg than the last video I made. So let's take a look. Scroll down here and we do see we are up to 93 cents. My last video was, I think, between 80 and 83 cents. So this is a very good sign for the platform as it shows that the current strategy is working. So what is that current strategy? Well, what we have to do to bring peg up is get more Trunk out of this liquidity pool, put more BUSD into the liquidity pool, and we do that by making a very attractive APR here. So this APR is driving, among other things, the purchase of Trunk out of the liquidity pool to be staked and earn. So what is driving this APR? Well, the Stampede bond float is. And how do we know that? Well, we know that because in this Medium article, it says here, the Stampede bond float is not a strategy, but the amount of unpaid bonds in Stampede. So unpaid bonds in Stampede, which is used as the oracle for computing rewards for both Trunk rewards and the performance pool. And we can see down here that Trunk staking rewards are given at a 10% APR paid out to Trunk stakers based on our outstanding Stampede bond float. So what does that mean? Well, that means the higher this number goes, the higher this number goes. So as we increase the Stampede bond float, we are going to increase the staking APR. So how do we increase the Stampede bond float? Well, it says here that is the amount of unpaid bonds. So to increase this float, we have to use Stampede. We have to roll and we have to bond. So Stampede is now driving the Stampede bond float, which is driving the APR, which is driving the convergence of the Trunk and BUSD in the liquidity pool. So our duty, if we are in Stampede, is to continue to roll. continue to roll our stampede. If we continue to roll our stampede, we will continue to boost this stampede bond float, which will boost this APR, which will make it more enticing to investors to go and purchase trunk and deposit it into staking. So I think you guys understand now what the strategy to get back to peg is. BT is a genius, and he figured out how to get us back to peg without draining the treasuries. So this is something that we need to give some time to, right? This isn't going to happen overnight, but it is going to happen. It's going to be gradual, and it's going to put the platform in an extremely good position to continue on. So now that we've talked about the stampede bond float and how it is indirectly driving peg back up, let's talk about the peg support strategy. So to get a better idea of what the peg support strategy is, I activated this button and paid for the transaction so that I could look at it. And here we have it right here. So let's go through this line by line and try to decipher what's going on here. So on this first line, we have elephant being pulled from the elephant treasury to the peg support contract. The peg support contract then sends that elephant to PancakeSwap, and PancakeSwap sends back BUSD. So effectively, line 2 and 3 are swapping elephant for BUSD. Then the contract mints some trunk and sends that trunk to PancakeSwap, and then on the next line it also sends the BUSD that we got from selling the elephant to PancakeSwap with it, and it creates an LP and it sends it to the elephant liquidity pool. So what we have is the peg support contract deepening the liquidity pool, and that is a pretty awesome way to support peg. Because if you know about liquidity pools, and if you follow my channel, you know how big I am about understanding liquidity pools. So if you don't know about liquidity pools, please stop and go watch the videos that I have linked in the description. I am so used to saying that, I just can't drive home the importance of understanding liquidity pools if you are an investor in DeFi. So if you understand liquidity pools, you understand that the deeper liquidity is, the less the price is impacted from buys and sells. So by taking money from the elephant treasury and adding it to the trunk BUSD liquidity pool, effectively you are softening the blow from big sells and big buys. So it works twofold, right? The deeper the liquidity is, the less the price will drop for sells, and the less the price will increase for buys. But with a stable coin, that's fine. We don't want the price to increase or drop. So passively increasing the depth of the liquidity over time will support the contract. Eventually, we'll get to a point where the liquidity on this trunk BUSD pool is so deep that we're going to have one bad O stablecoin on our hands, guys. It's going to happen. So how much is of this is taken from the elephant treasury and sent to liquidity? Well, let's look here. It says the trunk peg strategy, a 5% APR on elephant treasury is used to buy trunk and also add liquidity to trunk BUSD. So that's exactly what we just verified on the blockchain. So a 5% APR. That means that 5% APR is sent daily from the elephant treasury that has $5.3 million in it. So a 5% APR for the elephant treasury is really nothing. So to get the daily APR, you would divide 5 by 365. So let's say 5 divided by 365. That means 0.01% of this per day. So if we multiply that times 5.37 million, we see that $73,000 a day is sent from the elephant treasury to add liquidity to trunk BUSD. So what's the new driver for the elephant treasury? Well, The elephant treasury traditionally has grown through reflections and through Stampede. It was used to take money in from Stampede. It was also used to pay out Stampede, and as it grew, it started earning more and more reflections. So that's kind of changed and kind of hasn't changed. So now the elephant treasury still grows through reflections, but it's not growing through Stampede, which is fine, right? Because it's only paying out a 5% APR. Now, we do want the elephant treasury to grow over time, but here's the deal. If it doesn't grow over time and it stays relatively flat for a while, that's fine, because that still means that it's in equilibrium with the PEG support contract, and it's able to be passively adding liquidity to trunk BUSD. So if we don't see this number going up, that's not a huge deal, right? When we go to the next version, after we have built the liquidity and we've gotten back to PEG and we're running on all 8 cylinders, we will want to see this starting to go up. So I'm not sure if the mechanics will change again, but right now this is growing through reflections, and it only pays out to Stampede if, we'll close that here, if Stampede is claimed and the claim amount is larger than 1% of the trunk treasury. So this is not paying out Stampede to the majority of investors. If people claim, the majority of us will just be pulling from the trunk treasury. The trunk treasury is now basically the Stampede button. So whenever we saw money building up on the Stampede button, now that's coming to the trunk treasury. So this is paying out directly, and it says right here, let's see, in this one right here, in general, when bonding Stampede happens, let me close that. When trunk is claimed from Stampede, a withdrawal will happen from the trunk treasury on the first attempt if the withdrawal is less than 1% of the treasury. Otherwise, the system will mint new tokens. So how much do you need to have in Stampede to make it mint new tokens? Well, I did the math, and it's roughly 450,000 trunk you need to have bonded in order to make a claim on a single day's earnings that is 1%. So 225,000 would give you a 1% withdrawal in 2 days, and 112,000 bonded would give you a 1% withdrawal in 4 days. So you need quite a bit bonded. I think the average person like me and a lot of people watching this probably don't have enough bonded to create a 1% withdrawal. So that alleviates the pressure on elephant treasury. So now basically the only thing that the elephant treasury will be paying out is to support the PEG. So that is how we are going to support the PEG. We are going to support it by creating super deep liquidity. Once that happens, large sells and large buys will have a very insignificant impact on the price. So I know a lot of you are saying that we should have a redeem function that would get PEG up immediately, but again, that's just not the smart way to do it. It's not about instant gratification. It is about long-term fulfillment, right? You're going to be much happier if you're able to still claim and roll in a year than you would be if we got back to PEG and a handful of investors were able to dump all of their money and the platform was gone next month. Nobody wants that. We want Trunk and Stampede to be around for a while. So that is the PEG support strategy. Now we've talked about how we're getting back to PEG. We've talked about how it's going to support PEG. Now let's talk about elephant buyback, right? Because we want to grow, we want to put upward pressure on the price of elephant so this appreciates. So how are we doing that? Well, let's take a look at this buyback function and walk through it. So this is the buyback transaction, and it was performed by this person here. I did see them in the chat that they pushed the button, and I asked them kindly for the hash. So thank you to this address for saving me the $4.51. Your contribution to this video is much appreciated. So let's dive into this. The first action we have here on the first two lines, you have BUSD being pulled from this. Here is the cash treasury. This is the buyback contract. So $11,000 pulled from the cash treasury to the buyback contract. That money is then sent by the buyback contract to a Binance contract and swapped for WBNB, but that was only half. See, we have 11,000 BUSD pulled out here, and half of it was swapped for wrapped BNB. That wrapped BNB is then used to swap for Elephant. So we have a large Elephant purchase here. Then that Elephant is sent to PancakeSwap with the other half of the BUSD, and it is used to create Elephant BUSD liquidity. And on this last line, we have a little bit of excess from fees that weren't balanced out, sent back to the cash treasury. So in short, we have the buyback contract pulling money from the treasury, swapping half of that money for Elephant, and using the other half of BUSD to pair with that Elephant, and it is sent to the Elephant BUSD liquidity pool. So this is doing two great things for the platform. First, it's putting upward pressure on the price of Elephant by creating large buys, and those buys are also triggering reflections that are fed into our Elephant treasury, and might I add, it's being sent, the reflections are being sent out to all current Elephant holders, so that's pretty awesome. Now this contract passively increases our holdings, so that's also a plus, but it's also increasing the Elephant BUSD liquidity pool. It's adding depth to that. So again, if you understand what that means, it means that the price of Elephant will not be as impacted by buys and sells, which is fine because it's putting upward pressure on the price, so it's causing price appreciation. Soon it'll get to a point where that is going to look very sexy to investors again, and we are going to see some upward movement on the price. When that happens, we are going to see the Elephant treasury start to grow. So just like I mentioned that if we don't see the total in this go up or down, that's a good thing. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not working. In fact, if it goes sideways for a little while, that is proof that it is working. The same is true with the BUSD treasury. If the BUSD treasury is sideways, then that's fine too. That means the system is in equilibrium and it's slowly building liquidity, adding buy pressure to Elephant, appreciating the assets in the Elephant treasury, and supporting PEG all at once. So what drives the total in the BUSD treasury? Well, that's just like it used to be, minting. Minting is what feeds the BUSD treasury. So how much of the BUSD treasury is paid out to buy back Elephant? Well, if we come back here, we see the Elephant buyback strategy pays 10% of the BUSD balance per day to gradually buy back Elephant as funds stream in from trunk minting. This mitigates abrupt changes in volatility and adds constant bribe pressure to Elephant for treasury and liquidity. So we just confirmed that. We just went through the transaction and we saw that money is pulled from the treasury, used to buy Elephant. That triggers reflections that get put into the Elephant treasury, as well as puts upward pressure on the price appreciation of the assets in the treasury. So here we see the synergy that BT is so well known for. So if we look at this, what is 10% of 674,000? Well, that is 67,000. So right now, there's going to be $67,000 a day. Well, obviously that it's a percentage, so that'll go down each day if the price of the value of the treasury goes down. But I've been watching it, and it's been pretty steady between 650,000 and about 710,000. So if this goes sideways in balance or does go up and down a little bit, that is fine. That means again that the system is in equilibrium and it's working. So now you see the importance for us to get back to PEG. If we get back to PEG, if we get this back to 99 cents, then it will make sense for investors to start using the minting function. So from what we've learned, when we get back to peg and the minting function is starting to be used, and that starts putting more money into the BUSD treasury, the BUSD treasury will then be able to make larger purchases of Elephant through the buyback contract. When that happens, the price of Elephant will start appreciating, which will attract more investors, which will drive the value of the assets in the Elephant treasury up. And as that happens, more and more liquidity will be added to Trunk BUSD, which will deepen the liquidity and further support the peg, the price of Trunk at peg. So you can see we've got some awesome synergy here. We really need to get back to peg, but BT has found a way to kind of drive getting back to peg through the Stampede bond float. So it's a great time to buy some cheap Trunk on PancakeSwap, put it into Stampede, put it into staking. Either way, you're helping the platform. So once we get back up to peg and the minting function starts being used, it's going to be a chain reaction that's going to drive everything. So I hope you guys can appreciate what BT has done here. He definitely has created a way for us to get back on track in a way that's not going to hurt the longevity of the platform. I'm really excited to see this start to get rolling. I have a few stats that I will be watching, and we'll put out some metrics on the status of the recovery. We'll be looking at things like the Elephant treasury balance, the BUSD treasury balance, the number of participants in Stampede. So if that's growing, we know that more people are bonding more Stampede. So there's a few numbers that I'm going to be looking at and tracking. Don't have enough data points right now to really give an accurate idea of how well the platform is recovering or how fast it's recovering, but be sure to like and subscribe so when I put those videos out about the Elephant money recovery, you will be able to stay up to date with what's going on. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Farewell till next time.